The hardest part about this project is making the motor plate. And this motor plate, this is 1/4 inch steel, and it's a 4 by 9 inches. And you gotta have a steel shop or find this someplace. And then making this fit on the motor. So you gotta mark your holes. Center of the holes, the center of that hole, and the center of this hole. And then you gotta measure how far apart the holes are. So we go to the center of the hole there. Okay, so it looks like it's not 5, it's 4. So 4 and it's 4, almost an 8. So what we gotta do is make this mount so it'll be that wide, whatever that is, by 4 and an 8. So measure up here, 4 and an 8. So basically we're gonna center this in here. So 4 and an 8. That's about where I want to start the hole. Now the thing is, we have to be able to tighten the chain, which means we have to move the motor back and forth. So the hard part is making these slots. So we're gonna have to start from here and then make slots about like that. And now how you make those slots, if you don't have a mill, is you just drill a bunch of holes like that. You drill them all, then you file them all out, and that'll get your holes. I'm going to weld these axle bolts on the end right here. So I cut a 1/4 inch piece of metal. Like it's just something really sturdy to weld to. So that'll weld on there, and then I'll weld this on here like that. That'll be my axle bolt. That looks pretty straight. Basically with the back of the bar. Gotta go 90 degrees, this side and this side. And just gotta be close. Beautiful. Whoa. There you go, one side. So if my motor is too far that way, that's okay, because I can space this tire out. But if my motor is too far that way, that's bad. I can't push this tire any more in. So I need to make sure this tire is too far out that way. So we're really close. We're close to perfect. We wanted the motor too far this way, but we're really close. Front's going to be complex because I got to make all the steering and stuff. So now I'll work on that. Made the rear mount here thinner. I cut it in half. Cut this sucker in half because now that it's half the size, I'll be able to fit this on here and get the two bolts up into that motor plate because the bolts are really narrow. So I'll weld this back on, and that'll be kind of a strengthener or support. Okay, now for the steering. We got my cool little Harbor Freight square thing. Probably picked that up for $9 on sale or something like that. And it's going to hold those little axles nice and square. And we'll get those welded. I got my little 110 welder. So it's going to take full power to heat those stupid things up and get them hot enough to melt. But here it goes. Okay, we got our spot welds. Boom, that's going to go in there. And that's going to go like that. This is going to get welded on my axle. And there we go. Steering. Cool it off. There we go. All right. There we go. How's that look? Nice. Okay, now for the steering. Steering that. We'll cut it at 20, and we can shorten it if we have to. You can never 20. It's always better to go too long than it is to go too short. Okay, got our steering rod cut there. Now we'll put our little sleeves on that we made. That'll go right there. Right here. So now we'll come there. Okay, next we're going to make a quick little steering wheel. So what we're going to do, I just cut out 4 or 5 inch pieces of steel, and these two are going to weld right onto that center shaft right here. And then I'm just making M. This and those are going to bolt up there like that and like that. So I'm going to tack weld all this together and then weld it onto there. Oh, so let's do that. Sand those corners off. Like sharp corners on here. Big M. The big M. We'll line our steering wheel up with this. That's straight. There we go. Yeah, steering wheel. Boom, just like that. Wow. Nice. Now we just got to make our connecting rods right here. We got steering. Some flat metal. And mark it. And we're good. Let's do that. Let's mark it. Gotta make sure this is straight. Woo, warm. And this is straight. Now we just mark the holes. Here and here. There we go. Let's cut it, and we got one side done. This is the right side. Alright, let's do that. Alright. We cut the last little arm. Let's plug that sucker on there. Oh. There. Boom. We got steering. There it is. Put my screws on here. Might have to bend this down a little bit more. Now we're good. Alrighty, we're ready to ride. I've got a roller. I just got to work on brakes. I'll end up doing just some scrub brakes that rub on the tires back here. And the steering, let's see. I just made my little M. Oh, there we go. And there it is. Steering. So just welded flat piece of metal to the bottom of the bolt here. Weld the bolt on there. Weld a flat piece of metal on here. Weld the bolt under here. I'll use these nylocks so I can leave it nice and loose and don't tighten them. And then that's it, man. Just like that. Works like a champ. Time to go for a roll. See how it rolls. Okay, time for a roll test. Roll test. having a mill is really nice, because then we can do slotted things like that, and then we can just mill it, slot it, put the mill down in there, run it back and forth, do our slot, just back and forth, get our slot in, and then it's really handy to have a mill to do that. Otherwise, oh, air compressor. Otherwise, the other way you can make slots in a bunch of metal is to drill a bunch of holes, and then you can use a file and file it all out, because you got to have slots, because when you put the motor on the back, you got to be able to move the motor back in order to tension the chain, because the chain's going to be on here. It'll be loose, so you got to have slots, and you move it back and tension that chain up. So you got to have slots. So there's that. Ooh. I'll take this, and we'll put it on here like this. And then we'll put the motor on like this. And then we'll line up 2 sprockets right here and make sure they're straight, and make sure the motor's not twisted like this, and this tire's got a little bit of a bend in it like that, so we're going to put the motor sideways a little bit like this, not a lot, but just a little bit to get the chain to line up right. On the back axle we got a spacer right here, and this spacer puts the sprocket right on the motor. So this spacer lines the sprocket right up. So if we have to change the size of this spacer down here, if we have to change the size of the spacer to get this sprocket lined up better on the motor, then we can adjust that spacer. Now we're going to weld this thing on. And the other thing we got to check is make sure those slots are going straight forward. And I think it all looks pretty good. It's a little bit off, so we're gonna have to, our spacer is a little bit wide, so we're gonna have to make our spacer a little bit narrow, move that sprocket back just a hair. But actually we could tilt the motor a little bit, so we're gonna have to tilt it just a tad anyway, and if we tilt it, that might get it to line up, because the like I said, the tire is on a little bit crooked, so I just have to go like this, and then it's lined up perfect. So I'm going to put the bolts in the motor and make sure that's good. And one thing, when you mount your motor, you want to use really high quality lock washers. The cheaper washers will mash flat and they won't hold anymore, so these are grade 8 lock washers, and these are standard bolts. These are strong enough. You can strip these out, but generally you don't get them that tight. But you got to have really good washer or lock washers, and sometimes really good flat washers too. Okay. So it turns out these mounting bolts down here, they're metric. So these mounting bolts are going to be a 8mm by 1mm thread pitch. Now the clutch, the shaft on the clutch, this is a 5/16 24, so that's an American or a standard thread, but the rest of this go-kart is metric, and maybe some of these mounts might be standard, but the rest of it's metric. So just be aware of that. You got to get a metric 8mm by 1mm mounting bolts for the engine. Nice and beautiful, rock solid. It's not going to go anywhere. So our motor plate is now done. Now we just got to get some metric hardware for the mount, put the motor on, and then we'll work on making the brake cable, the brakes, and the gas cable. And this thing should be ready to run. Actually, I'll get some bolts for it, bolt the motor on, put the chain on, and just run the throttle with my hand so I can drive this thing tomorrow. It's ready to go. Strong enough. Adjust the motor position over the chain a little bit more, but we're dang close. We're where we want to be, so that's looking really good. Alright. Okay, and like I said, tomorrow I'll just put the chain on it, and once I get the chain on there, I'll just run the throttle with my hand right here. Wow, 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 wow. Take it for a spin. That should work pretty good. That should work pretty good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to weld on a scrub brake. So this rod is these. I'm going to weld these two little mounts, and the rod will spin inside here. And I'm going to weld these right on here. And then when you hit the brakes, these will just rub. So just rubbing brakes, real simple and very effective. So we got this on here, and then we'll just hook up to our brake pedal, and we'll have an arm right here welded here, and it'll just brake the sucker. So that's going to be our brakes. Just a scrub brake kind of ideal thing, and really simple and effective. Okay, we got the motor on, we got the 8mm bolts for the engine, and we got the sprocket lined up. So you can see that. Sprocket's nice and lined up, got the chain on. We had to make the spacer down here just a little bit smaller, but this is perfect. We wanted this motor to be too far this way, because if it was too far that way, we'd have to cut the frame. So too far this way, we can just add spacers, and out here, I got a long spacer to hold the wheel on just because I had room to go that way. So let's fire it up, see what it looks like. I heard it. Yeah, let's go for a spin. Oh, wait. We need a chair. How'd it gas?